Adeji Ameze, and I'm here to teach you basic science. We'll be looking at the theme, learning about our environment. We'll be looking at the topic, environmental hazards, part 1. By the end of today's lesson, you should be able to define deforestation and list its causes. You should also be able to state the different effects of deforestation on plants and animals. You should be able to identify some government regulations against deforestation. To help us understand our topic today very well, we'll be looking at some key words. We'll look at ecosystem, biome, biodiversity, greenhouse effects, global warming, tree felling, habitat, wildlife, wildlife sanctuary, and act. Let's take them one after the other. What's an ecosystem? It's simply a community of living things and their interaction with their environment. The biome is a key ecological community type. The habitat is a native home, the natural home of a living thing. What's biodiversity? It's simply the variety of life, that is, plants, animals, moneras, protists, and fungi, which make up the 5 kingdoms of living things in a given habitat, or looking at it in the world generally. Greenhouse effect is simply the retaining of heat from the sun by atmospheric gases. Such gases include carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, nitrous oxide, and ozone. Let's look at global warming. Global warming simply is the increase in the surface temperature of the Earth due to greenhouse effect. Remember I said the greenhouse effect is when atmospheric gases such as carbon dioxide retain heat from the sun. Tree felling is simply the cutting down of a tree. Now let's look at wildlife. Wildlife talks about living organisms, but it excludes humans and other domestic animals. But most times when you talk about wildlife, you talk about particularly mammals, fishes, and birds. Wildlife sanctuary is a natural refuge, a particular area carved out, particularly created to provide security for wildlife. This is done to protect them from hunting and predation. An act is a specific law communicated in writing. Humans benefit so much from the forest. We get things such as food, raw materials, etc. from the forest. Other living things also do benefit. Animals, most of them live in the forest. As we can see here, what is a forest? A forest is a habitat for both plants and animals. But beyond that, it's also a source of food and raw materials from which useful products can be made. A forest is a very biodiverse area. You find different varieties of living things that live there. That is their natural home. For instance, you don't exactly find a tiger moving around. When you go into deep forests, you may find 1 or 2 tigers living there, and they are comfortable. That's their natural habitat. The forest plays a very major role in living things to make them comfortable, to make life better. Now, sadly, as human population increases, there's the need for more space to live in or farming. There's the need for more materials to consume, like, say, raw materials. Example, wood, to heat up your environment. Other materials, food. And now, because of this, we notice that people go into the forests and clear up the forest. Sometimes they do this for agricultural purposes. Sometimes they do this in search of raw materials and the likes. So as technology advances and industries open up, and there's a need for more research, there's more need to get more space and raw materials to work with. Therefore, people have resorted to deforestation. What is deforestation? Deforestation is simply the destruction or clearing of trees in a forest, maybe for agricultural purposes, industrial, research, domestic or commercial purposes. For example, we want to site an institution. We need vast land areas to do that. And so you notice that people go into areas where people really do not live, cleared up, begin to erect buildings. Those forests being cleared up, the act is known as deforestation. As we can see, this is the land all cleared up, all trees and animals wiped out. Most times, deforestation occurs in tropical rainforests. These are forests found where there's high annual rainfall and high biodiversity. Tropical rainforests are forests that have very tall trees that form canopy over the ground. Most times, they help shade and keep the soil and the animals and the creatures living below cool and okay. But it has been discovered that over time, over the years, most of these rainforests are cleared up for the different purposes men have. Some common ways by which deforestation occurs. Burning, like we can see here, it sets the place on fire and the trees and everything in it gets burnt off. Or by clear cutting, we clear up everything. Probably we use a tractor to clear up everything that we find around. We can also do selective logging. It's another way, another method of deforestation. You pick particular trees and cut them down that will suit your purpose. Now, what are the common reasons why people engage in deforestation? Number one reason, to obtain materials from forests to use as fuel. Sometimes we go into the forest to get some wood to cook. Some other times to heat up our houses. For this reason, deforestation occurs. Another cause of deforestation is to create space for urbanization and industrialization. Take, for instance, a new refinery is to be set up to enable processing of crude oil. Now, you need vast land areas to do that. And so to get this achieved, you clear up a very large area of forest. Another cause for deforestation is globalization. Globalization can be defined as a process in which people, organizations, and governments of different nations interact for the purpose of investment, trade, information, technology, etc. Now, as globalization occurs, there's a need for a transport medium. Let's take, for instance, vehicles. These vehicles, we need a roadway. Now, to achieve this, land areas are cleared. For instance, we see this roadway. So many trees were felled to be able to build this road. Another reason for deforestation is to obtain raw materials that can be processed into other useful items. For instance, we get timber from our forests, which we use to process other items such as paper, furniture, frames, matchsticks, etc. Another cause of deforestation is to obtain land for agricultural purposes. Furthermore, deforestation can occur in order to create a playing ground during war. For instance, during the British War, the British used Agent Orange, it's a herbicide, to clear up trees such that their enemies could no longer find places to hide. They also did this to reduce the food provision for their enemies. Another cause of deforestation is to mine valuable mineral resources. There are times when a mineral resource is found in a particular location, and to access that mineral resource, vast land areas need to be cleared up. These are some reasons why deforestation occurs. Now let's see the effects of deforestation. Number one effect is global climate change. One of such ways deforestation causes global climate change is to cause global warming. How? Remember that carbon dioxide is being used by plants in the process of photosynthesis. Without these plants, there will be nothing to use up this carbon dioxide. Remember that humans give off carbon dioxide while they breathe. So the lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere with no plant to use them up will cause an imbalance in the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere. Furthermore, as plants are burnt down, they release carbon, which will react with oxygen in the air to produce even more carbon dioxide. Also, as plants decay, they further give off carbon, which will lead to an increase in the carbon dioxide level in the atmosphere. With this increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and nothing to take or reduce it, remember we said greenhouse effect is that effect in which the greenhouse gases, the atmospheric gases, retain radiation, retain heat. With so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and nothing to take some of it away, they become an imbalance in the level of heat in the atmosphere. Because with more carbon dioxide, as we can see here, in the air, it means that the radiation from the sun, as it radiates, there will be more CO2 to absorb that heat, thereby increasing the temperature level in the atmosphere, causing global climate change. Another way, or another reason why there's the global climate change due to deforestation, plants play a major role in controlling the level of water vapor in the atmosphere through the process of transpiration. When these trees are no longer available, there will be nothing to play the role trees usually play in giving off water vapor. So the water vapor level will be lower than normal. Furthermore, remember that trees provide shade for the ground. When these trees are cut, it means that the sun will directly heat up the ground. All of these will create an imbalance in the atmospheric temperature, thereby leading to a change in the climate. Another effect of deforestation is that it will affect the food chain and the habitat of different species. Remember we said the rainforest is a very biodiverse biome. It is such that it houses animals of all shapes and sizes, plants, moneras, protists, and fungi. When a forest is cleared up like this, we discover that the natural home of many of these living organisms will be displaced. Like we can see our animal here, it has lost its home, probably lost its family while the bushes or the forest was being cleared. Food chain, the plants which were previously here that were cut down used to serve as food supply to so many animals. Now no longer available because an imbalance in the food chain. Some other times, as the areas are cleared, some animals die. Some others move to a different habitat that may not be favorable. Another effect of deforestation is that some species become extinct. For example, while this forest area was being cleared, there were a number of animals, plants, moneras, fungi, protists found here. In cases where those areas were burnt, every animal, every living thing in that forest area will die in the heat. With the much deforestation occurring around the world, so many animals are becoming extinct. Some others, because they have lost their habitats, their natural homes, they go somewhere else, but that is not where they are used to. For that reason, they may not thrive very well there, and they die. Gradually, some species are becoming extinct. Like our elephants, the Asian elephants are gradually becoming extinct. The orchids are all endangered species. That's to say, they are gradually becoming extinct. Another effect of deforestation is that research, pharmaceutical purposes, pharmaceutical products that are gotten from the forest, we may no longer find them available. The more we burn down the forests, the more we cut down the forests, the less of these products that are useful to human existence, the less available they will be. Somehow, every living thing interacts one way or another with themselves. So with the more of these losses I have earlier listed, people who rely on the forest and its products for survival, the less chances they stand to get. For instance, this is cocoa, and my friend here is trying to get some down. Imagine the forest areas cleared up completely. He will not have access to much of this that he uses to keep up daily. Another thing that the deforestation affects is the water cycle. With more deforestation occurring, the water cycle becomes unstable. It no longer goes the way it ought to go. Usually, as the sun shines down on water, evaporation occurs, it gets into the cloud, condensation occurs. Plants give off water vapor, it condenses, they stay in the atmosphere. After a while, precipitation occurs, rain begins to fall, and more water goes back to the water bodies. But here, as we've earlier explained, without transpiration, without the effect from these great trees, there will be an imbalance in the water cycle. Another effect of deforestation is soil erosion. Soil erosion will occur because as the trees, which usually help shade the ground from the direct sun, are cut down. The sun, the radiation from the sun hits the ground directly. For this reason, the soil itself is dry. Therefore, wind will easily blow off the topmost soil. Another beautiful thing the plants or the trees usually do is that as heavy rain falls, the direct weight and pressure from the water does not go to the ground. The tree serves as a barrier, kind of. But now, without these trees, as rain falls and water begins to run off, it is easy for the topsoil to run off with the water, therefore leading to erosion. More erosion will lead to nutrient deficiency because the top soil that has the nutrients is washed off. Therefore, growth of plants reduces. Now, with this erosion, more often than not, the water bodies are interconnected in such a way that as erosion occurs and takes away the topsoil, all of it, the chemicals included, the nutrients and everything, will be washed into the water bodies, leading to poor quality of water. One more effect of deforestation is it makes the land areas more prone to flooding and landslides. As we see, because of globalization, we cut down so many trees. Also for industrialization and all of the likes, we cut down trees. Now we build concrete floors. These floors are too hard, such that the ground no longer absorbs water easily. For this reason, when precipitation occurs, that is when rain falls, there's no room for the water to be absorbed, thereby causing so much water to be available on the ground that cannot be absorbed into the ground. This will cause an increase in the flooding rates. Trees also help pull up water via their roots. When so many of these trees are cut down, the great quantity or amount of water these trees would have absorbed and stored will no longer function, therefore leading to more flooding and landslides. Some possible solutions to deforestation. We should all stop cutting trees, especially carelessly. More wildlife sanctuaries should be established such that a given area or some given areas will be kept as reserves such that people will no longer have easy access to go in and cut down trees. We should establish more commercial forest plantations. This will help increase the number of trees available. We should promote recycling, reuse, and reduction of things that we use. This is to say, paper, which is gotten from wood, if we're able to recycle paper more, it means that we will need to cut down trees less, because we will not need so much more paper. The ones available, when they are being recycled, we can use for the purpose of writing. As much as we can reduce the use of things, for instance, poly bag. Instead of buying a new poly bag every other day you go to the market, you can actually reuse the old one so that these materials that we get from the forest, we will need less of them. We are encouraged to plant flowers and trees around our houses. This will help build up and reduce carbon dioxide level in the air. We should further create awareness about the negative effects of deforestation. Another solution is that our government puts policies in place that will help reduce deforestation. Some examples of regulations put in place that could help reduce deforestation is the Land Use Act. Although this act does not clearly talk about deforestation, the application of this act will help reduce deforestation. The act ensures that the environment is protected by checking and preventing any careless or destructive use of land, such that people do not carelessly choose particular land areas, cut them down, and use for their own purposes. Another government policy and law is the Urban and Regional Planning Decree. Through this decree, the urban and regional planning has been made in such a way that it guides us on the use of every piece of land in the country. People do not carelessly use land areas for their own bid. Rather, they seek the planners to guide them to ensure that land is used in accordance to the law. Another policy or decree is a National Park Decree. This decree ensured that refuge or sanctuaries for wildlife were established. This prevented the careless cutting down of trees and destruction of forests. Yet another law that helps prevent deforestation is the Natural Resources Conservation Act of 1989. This established the Natural Resources Conservation Council, and this council ensured that natural resources are conserved, thereby reducing the careless cut down of trees and deforestation. Some individual states in Nigeria also have their own edicts that help prevent deforestation. We've come to the end of today's class. Let's do a quick recap of all that we have learned. Remember, we said deforestation is the destruction of trees in a forest for agricultural, industrial, commercial purposes. Deforestation also occurs mostly in tropical rainforests. We learned some reasons for deforestation, and we said one of it is to obtain land for agricultural purposes, to obtain materials from the forest to use as fuel, to create space for urbanization, probably areas where people will live or farm. We also learned that one reason for deforestation is to obtain raw materials that can be processed. We learned some effects of deforestation, and one of it is global climate change, extinction of some species, change in the water cycle, and eroding of soil. We further learned some possible solutions of deforestation. We said establish wildlife sanctuaries. Those sanctuaries are protected such that people do not carelessly cut down trees anymore. Another solution we gave is that people plant trees and flowers around their areas and houses. We also learned to recycle things more, reduce the use of things, especially the careless use of things, and as much as we can reuse, we encourage ourselves to reuse things. And like so many other countries, Nigeria also has policies that help prevent deforestation. Now let's see how much you understood this lesson today. We'll ask one question, and I hope you get it right. Dash is the destruction or clearing of trees in a forest by people for agricultural, industrial, domestic, or commercial purposes. Option A, reforestation. B, deforestation. C, afforestation. What will you answer B? If you said B, then you're correct. Deforestation. Reforestation is wrong. Afforestation is wrong. Deforestation is the destruction or clearing of trees in a forest by people for agricultural, industrial, domestic, or commercial purposes. This brings us to the end of our class. Thank you.